Esat sveicināti Rīgā, Speak Easy studijā, diskusijā par atraidījumu traumu diskusijā. Redzēsim, cik mums šodien būs daudz atraidījumu, cerams, ka ne īpaši, un mēs varēsim kavēties atmiņās. Bet, jebkurā gadījumā, esat sveikti šeit, jūs skatītāji, un mani sarunu biedri, Tālis, Banga, mana balss
Mana balss, Tālis Banga, one of authors of initiative Mana balss, also Peter's books. We have had a lot of discussions. We also have Sandis Ratnieks, who is specialist of systemic psychotherapy. Hello. This event is sort of two-sided. On the one hand, it's a decade of platform Mana balss, and at the same time, this is welcoming and congratulations from the Swiss Embassy in Latvia about the centenary of international recognition of Latvia de jure. So, hello, Mr. Ambassador. Now I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear listeners, great pleasure and honor to be with you this morning and to take part in this conversation. In my short term in Latvia, I have been happy to see that Latvian and Swiss people share quite a few things. We like nature, spending time outdoors, we highly value culture, but there is something else. Another commonality, people of Latvia and Switzerland, we both like to have direct influence on the decision of our government and government. Latvia has done via Mana balss platform, while in Switzerland, the semi-direct democracy is the approach of choice. My country is often mentioned as the closest thing to a true direct democracy system, meaning a form of government in which the power comes directly from the people and in which people decide directly. And Switzerland is the world leader in terms of citizens' participation. More than a third of all referenda ever held in the world took place in Switzerland. The system that was extended and refined and modernized over the last 150 years. Popular consultations are held on a wide range of topics. In the last 30 years, people had to make decisions about, for example, new immigration law, federal constitution, the shortening of the working week, an increase of minimum or additional holidays, all of which were rejected by the industrious Swiss. How does it work? The most important instrument of direct democracy in Switzerland are the people's initiative and the referendum. Public votes take place at all levels, state, federal, cantonal, and to some extent at regional, at local level. Are fine. Of course, some of the issue put to vote can divide and polarize society. But contrary to the fears or the expectation of the 19th century, referendum and initiative can by no means lead to people's vote. It's not the people, but the parliament and government that remain at the center of the political system. And despite direct democracy element, a traditional parliamentary democracy works in Switzerland. For example, the rejection of the minimum 6-week paid holiday by people a few years ago show that citizens are responsible and can be trusted. Rather careful. Only half the referendum are accepted and only 10% of popular initiative. legitimate pride in this direct infrastructure us to look at this overlook at its strength, but also at some weaknesses. Direct democracy that new law enjoys general acceptance. It also member of opposition groups or minorities the chance to provoke discussion on issues otherwise ignored. And often debate on thorny issues that politicians might have preferred to avoid is the most valuable element of this system. Thanks to this instrument, we have greater confidence in their political system, influence decision, even though they participate more than other Europeans in politics, shown inter alia by a rather low voter turnout. Supporters say that it allows minorities to bring topic to the fore. Critics of the system point out that it can delay social or political changes. After phenomena. How to go on, therefore, a recurring topic, especially after highly emotional and polarizing votes, or when the dividing line between winners and losers characteristics like versus land divide. How best to deal with that? I'm sure Mr. Hoffman will have his own take on this matter. Generally, our approach to deal with this is help based on involving more political processes, make informed decision and weigh up the pro and cons of voting a certain way. Supporters of the direct democracy say that indirect but potent influence members of the Federal Assembly, the Parliament, to seek compromise and secure. We know that forces unhappy with the given proposal will have another chance. Proposal also appears in Switzerland. We vote very often, approximately 4 times a year on maybe 20 different topics. Depending on the topic, fighting line will be influenced by different factors. Now, that rarely settles completely a question. Direct democracy allows minority groups to have a day. Try to win the argument. As our today discussion takes place in the framework of 100-year anniversary of Switzerland recognition of celebrating 12 years anniversary, that is my wish for today's discussion. Our two countries to have more discussion and more decision making of mutual respect and inclusion, be it online or in person, democracy or by the ballot boxes. Thank you for your attention. This morning.
Paldies liels Nekungam, Martēnam Mišlēm un laipni lūgtu Rīgā.
Very much, Mr. Michelet, and welcome to Riga. But now we turn back to our discussion today, and I would like to introduce the watchers and to introduce with Bruno Kaufmanns, who is for decades already correspondent of the Baltic states in Swiss radio organization SRF in Baltics and in northern countries, and he is also a member of the board of Swiss Democracy Fund, and he is activist of direct democracy with vast experience. Bruno, I don't know whether you do have this tradition in Switzerland, but in Latvia we are celebrating name day of Bruno. So congratulations of your name day. Today it's Bruno Day.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
So our goal is to raise awareness and security in mutual relationship, in mutual attitude. So I would like to give you now the floor with a question about this Swiss referendum tradition. And Mr. Ambassador was quite moderate and modest. He said only 50 years of an anniversary, but I guess it's more than 100 and something. So how to take in a favorable manner no in policy creation? What is your experience?
Yes, I thank you very much for having me today. I'm very pleased to see this event taking place in the framework of this anniversary. And of course, I'm happy to see that you are celebrating my name today in Latvia. I didn't know that. But I must say that, I mean, at myself, I can see I have had the right and the privilege to vote more than 1,000 times already in my life as a voter. Since I became eligible, and mostly of these 1,000 votes, I wasn't on the majority side. I was losing most of the votes, but I'm still very happy with the system. I would say I'm very much a happy loser. And I think this is true for most Swiss people, that at the same time that they are very often not on the side of the majority on a certain issue, they still feel this is a very important right to be invited, to be eligible, to be part of the decision-making process. And the important thing is, of course, that we know even if we lose a certain issue, a certain vote, there will be new issues coming up. In fact, when you go on the calendar of the Swiss Federal Chancellery, where there is a list of dates of the upcoming voting days, there is already a calendar until 2035. That means there is a certainty that you don't lose your right to vote by losing a certain issue. And this is in fact what democracy is about. Democracy is about an ongoing conversation. It's about the right to be heard, the right to have the right to be involved in the agenda setting and the decision making. And this makes it, of course, very much easier to not be just happy with the system when you win. And after all, of course, you can also say that the system of strong participation hasn't made Switzerland a weaker country than it is. It's especially also important in Switzerland because Switzerland is not an ethnicity. It's a multinational country with different cultures, different languages, different religious groups, very much also based on local and regional self-government. And this is important to have a common denominator in Switzerland, is basically this common conversation. So democracy makes the society much stronger, makes the people more responsible. And when you have responsibility, you also know when you participate or when you don't participate. Myself, I had a very profound experience as a young person when we in Switzerland in the 1980s discussed our security policy. And it was very much said that the Swiss army is more than just a security tool. It's basically a cultural institution for bringing together the people. And many people were not so happy about that. So at some point, young people like me, we proposed to have a referendum, a vote on abolishing the Swiss army, which was, of course, a very radical proposal. And we did also know that, of course, not the majority will follow this. We were maybe expecting that 10% of the people would vote for such a radical proposal. But in the end, we got a broad conversation about these issues, about the consequences of using a different kind of security measures. And in the end, 36% of the people voted in favor of this initiative. And we had the good luck that it happened just 2 weeks after the Berlin Wall was falling. So it was a moment of opening, a moment of looking forward. And yet we did lose the vote, but we were very much felt as happy losers or as the winning side of the debate. So this is the whole thing about democracy. It's not about winning or losing, it's about being part of it. And that means that you can very much also take a no for something positive. And as already the ambassador said, only 10% of the citizen initiatives are approved at the ballot box. But if you look into research and if you ask the people behind the initiatives, about 80 to 90% of the people are very happy that they made this initiative in spite of not winning the vote.
Paldies, Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno. About this happy loser, it's quite interesting term, and we also have some experience. We will talk later about that, because I will give you floor once again, and will ask your experience. But now, if we move to my colleagues and here in Riga, then I have a question for Sandis. Can you tell me how to say no and how to hear no? How important that is in systems in which we are. You have experience with couple therapy, family couples therapy. You are also consulting organizations and other structures. So systemically, we will come to personal traumas, personal feelings and pains, because saying no is never nice. And definitely it's not nice to hear no. But exactly now in system, what can you say? I would like to say from the human point of view that nobody likes to hear no. That's true. And I believe that in a mutual relationship between persons, if you say no to somebody, then you are the bad guy. And if you say yes, then you are the good guy or neutral. But you have your opinion. This opinion is different, and it's quite a complicated issue. This definitely is not a session of therapy where we'll analyze in depth each of our own experiences, but in the context of policy, democracy, society, it's important, because these reactions from people obviously are not very positive. People do not like rejection. This no actually also has some potential. Yes, I don't like being said no to some of my initiatives. At the same time, even with this negative message, there is a potential of growth, because this no can be justified in a way and can show me ideas how can I do something better. Also in relationship, whether it's in family or in a company. This is one of the hardest skills, to say criticism and to hear criticism. Because if we all say how happy we are, how good is everything, and nobody is saying that, well, you know, no, trouble is coming and there might be another perspective, how to look at this issue, there might be potential. If we talk about culture of relationship, also in our country, definitely there is still a place where to grow, where to improve and develop. And very often discussions are on a level like this. If you don't agree with me, you are an idiot. And the answer usually is, you are idiot yourself. So, like I say, there is still a place where to grow, and grow a lot.
If my wife says no and my boss says no, I will not give you a rise. Of course, I have my job and I have my wife, but But will it mean that there is a potential? I don't think it's that simple. But if we look at the title of our discussion, I think we should speak about how to say no, how to hear no, because quite often the way it is said, that can destroy people, that can deprive this person of any courage. It's like being hit by a truck. Then you have to think how you have to say this no so that the people would understand what is the reason behind this no, and maybe so that in the future there would be possible certain kind of cooperation. The fact that we have various positions doesn't mean that we are enemies, and this relationship should be preserved maybe. As a member of the public, what is your opinion? Of course, it's a generalization, and I would like to apologize for that. But in your opinion, do you think that we have the zero-sum game, that the winner takes it all? Or maybe there is also some empathy, some tolerance, or at least signs of these phenomena.
Es nedomāju, ka vienmēr tas nē ir jāuztver tā kā tāds noraidījums.
I don't think that you should take the no always as a rejection and stop this discussion by just receiving or saying no. Maybe you have to look at this as an opportunity for growth. And Latvians also say that if your door is closed, maybe you should look for other ways in. And maybe if we look at the ethics, you can really use it. If we look at the Mana Balss portal or my voice portal, sometimes I have thought that sometimes maybe it's worth saying no to each and every initiative, because if you are really sure about your idea and you are convinced that your idea is sustainable, that you can achieve meaningful results, then maybe you should fight for your idea. Maybe you should provide arguments to make no a yes. Of course, receiving no is not nice, but I also have a puppy at home, and I say no to this puppy 100 times a day, and it doesn't mean anything. For me, maybe no is more of an opportunity. Maybe it's healthy for our growth sometimes to hear no. So it's not a zero-sum game. I think it's just an additional motivation for us. Pēteris, what is your opinion? When a person is asked something, quite often that person says no right away. Like, do you like the tree? And he or she says, no, I don't like the tree. Next time, maybe he will also say no, but the third time he or she may already have an opinion, and that opinion may be quite valid. In the society, in life, you often hear no, but it's just normal. And this gives you certain experiences, and sometimes we just look at it and try to understand, is it going to be no or yes? And it's not a problem that if someone says you are stupid, then you feel stupid. Of course, this is not a very deep dialogue, detailed dialogue, but sometimes you have to start at a certain point. But the problem is, you know, when a person tries to cheat someone. Let's say if we look at dogs, for a long time I had a dog, and he accepted no, but he had the sense of justice, and if something unjust took place, then he protested. but just write, direct no. Yes, he was able to cope with that.
Klau, lūk, sunim, es esmu dzirdējis, novērojams, viens profesors savulaik teica, ka viņa kaķim ir sirdsapziņa.
I've heard that one professor once said that his cat has a conscience, and now your dog has a sense of justice. But I'm sure that we are even more complicated than that as people, as society, as ecosystem, and so on.
Man jautājums būs Sandim par ir neiespējami cilvēkus nomētot ar faktiem. Tā ir mana pieredze.
It's impossible to overload people with facts, and that is my experience.
Bet es taču tev saku, kāpēc
You know, people tend to say, I'm saying this to you. Why do you say this to me? You are like Washington consensus agent or liberalist or someone from the Kremlin and so on.
Bet viņi ir konservatīvi, liberāļi, anarchisti, vēl kaut kāda apolitiska. Tā kritika, tā sāpe, viņi ir visās pusēs.
This criticism, this pain, it's there. Andy, you know, I give you a fact or I state a fact and you state a fact, but I respond with emotions. So this is more about feelings, and it's not like a question, but what would you say to this?
Tas jautājuma formulējums tāds savā ziņā tāds drusku difūzs. Es domāju, līdz ar to man atbild arī varētu būt samērā difūza.
So this is quite a diffuse formulation. So my answer could be the same.
Mēs dzīvojam tādā laikmetā,
We live in an age where we have a lot of information. We have many, many facts.
Es domāju, ir kaut kāds tas pārsātinājums.
And then we have this oversaturation.
Bieži vien ir tā, ka runa nav tikai par to, vai tā ir taisnība, vai tā
And
nav.
quite often it's not just a matter of right or not right or black or white or whatever.
Es negribētu tā teikt, bet es negribētu arī noliekt, ka tas tā varētu
And I would not
būt.
like to
Tomēr, ka, mums katram ir kaut kāda personība un kaut kāda pieredze.
deny this, because we all have specific personalities, experience, and we react in an emotional way. And there are events and facts that emotionally resonate in us, and it becomes personally important. Yes, the things are correct and so on, but it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't apply to my life.
Pašai sevis pasargāšanas viedokļa, tad ļoti daudz lietas notiek pasaulē, un tad ir tā, tad varētu tikko tāds tā kā apļu zīmēt, ja?
You know, many things take place in the world, and you could say, you know, thanks God, it doesn't happen with me. It happens somewhere else, and we can afford not to think about that. And you know, if we let everything affect us, I think that also explains our nervousness. If we look at social networks, you know, there is always information coming and so on and so on. And if you read all of that, you become nervous, unnerved, and you just have to start filtering all of this. And you know, there are other aspects than just the correctness of facts. Because when we select facts, we somehow tend to adjust them to our opinions. You know, sometimes people claim it's scientific, and because it's scientific, then everyone has to believe it because the scientist said so. But then there are also other explanations, and it's like a never-ending story. Ziedonis once said that there are so many rights that you cannot really understand what is yours. And I agree that we live in an information age when everyone can be a media and everyone has their own rights and wrongs and so on. And if we look at Mana Balss or my voice, we have our initiatives, we have our ideas. And before we even apply, we think we are convinced that this is the best, the rightest, the most meritorious initiative, and we cannot even imagine that someone could say no. And if someone says no, we start questioning the democracy and independence and whatever. And in this information jungle, it's difficult to understand because everyone thinks that his or her right is the right, and we try to persuade everyone else about that.
Viens mans institīvs, man bija divas, nu, viņi tik noraidīta tieši
We had two initiatives, and one of our initiatives was rejected due to these facts that you just explained. And the facts were prepared by an expert from the Latvian bank. And I then thought, like, I don't need your facts, the substantiation. You can tell them somewhere else. And also, you have a salary that is maybe 5,000 per month, but I have this initiative for people who earn just 300 euros per month, and the facts cannot be compared. The person wants to say something, wants to express something, and this person comes here not to receive facts, but to say something.
Šeit vajadzētu konkretizēt, par ko ir sāpe.
Here we have to specify what is the source of the problem. And I will also give the floor to Sandis about this, and we'll give him the moderation powers. But basically, what was rejected was the initiative about the foreigners' tax. Speaking about the facts, at that time, I was looking for a flat, and I knew that they are very expensive, and I knew that Russian investors come called investors, but actually they are mobsters, and they just park their money here. And then I prepared this initiative on, let's say, maybe a foreigners' tax from third countries like Russia, Kazakhstan, China. Now they maybe that they should pay maybe 150 euros per month, or an amount that is as small as this in the apartment fund. And then there were these Latvian bank experts who said that this would prevent investors from coming. And then I asked, like, what is important? These potential investors actually mobsters or your own local people, your people? I think experts look at this like at the business, but I look at this as my local village. And for me, these facts do not seem to be relevant because we have a different opinion. You know, we see these colors in different tonalities. We even don't have the same alphabet. Better is we really are in the same village. And to assess the specific initiative, we look at this village together, and I don't know how successful this communication was, but we understood that in this ecosystem, if we touch it and if we try to find a solution, there is no money in that. There is no money going to be there at all. The problem really is there. It's there, but the solution that solution will start other mechanisms and eventually we'll have nothing from that. You know, as someone who is the author of the initiative, I see an answer, let's say, from my voice who says we will manage your initiative, we will collect the support, the necessary support, the necessary signatures and approvals, and submit to the parliament. And then I think you know that I can submit this. I can submit this initiative and think whether it affects just a few people or many people, and then people in the parliament, the legal commissions will review that, and then suddenly I have this expert saying no, and it's providing these facts, and the expert was not there. It was not mentioned anywhere. What kind of expert is that? Is it who is that person? What is that person? And I was really upset because it's not my voice; it's expert's voice. I can just initiate something, and then the expert will do the rest. And that was the problem. Sandy, I need your help. I wanted to give a part of the session to you so that you could moderate this. I don't know how Peter is perceived this, but I saw this as providing excuses. Maybe we can ask Peter about this, but what I find interesting, that we have these very strong emotions on one side and the other side. If I may, initiative about this topic. This initiative was your initiative. So I wanted to ask also to colleagues. This is like an anniversary meeting. It's a 10th anniversary. If we look at people's lives, this is not that much, but on the other hand, it is. There is a lot of experience, and this experience has brought us to this topic. So maybe in a few words, you can tell how you ended up having this particular topic, and maybe Talis and Peteris could comment. We already heard about initiatives and their considerations, and after we hear from them, maybe you can think about what we can do next.
Yes, thank you. How we came to this theme. We are communicating with society. We are talking about success story of Latvia. And I will say it's phenomenon because since 2011, there are amendments made to 42 laws, including state constitution. That is what we have done with our civic initiatives. So we can say, yes, we did that, and we can celebrate it with champagne, with cakes, but we choose to celebrate it this way, this clumsy discussion way. Sometimes you go to birthday like, oh, there's Tanya's birthday, you go to this birthday, and then you start to talk about something very clumsy. So I want to say once again, thank you that you agreed to participate in this discussion. And this is not maybe the best place where to be, to speak openly about this problem, about this pain, even hidden pain in us, and we have to speak about that. Manabals publishes approximately 40 percent of initiatives that have been submitted to us, 60% is rejected. However, it's in a discutable way, in argumented way, and we don't want to hurt people. We don't want to be like czars of justice. Yes, we have to develop this discussion, deliberation about initiatives. How that will be improved, that's another issue, and we will not solve it today, definitely not, but it's clear it has to be done. Anyway, our goal for us as an organization with this discussion today is to prove that yes, we are in one and the same village. But this village is quite complicated one. Yes, thank you. I got from you that from all submitted initiatives, 60% is rejected. That's the separate talk, and 40% is moved forward. So, okay, when I was thinking about today's discussion, I was thinking about this platform Manaballs. It's very trendy now to think about issues as tools, digital tools. So you have to learn how to use this tool, and if you use this tool in a best possible way, then the result will be better as well. But I would like to give the floor to my colleagues. Like now, it seems that they should add something to all this. Well, these initiatives I have submitted as activist of environment, fighting for less pollution and waste in the environment, then sometimes just one initiative is successful, because, for example, we see a lot of waste in the nature, but a lot part of this waste is created artificially. So once I went into one bistro. I will not name it, but we see packaging of this bistro on the roads, in meadows and everything. And I just took one coffee, but I got a receipt for that coffee, which is, like my friend said, as big that you could kill a person with it. So I would like to submit initiative for people when going shopping. They can refuse this receipt. It's not new America. It works in Estonia, in America, in any other country. So this is just a logical and simple initiative that could go through this filter of Manaballs. So when I submitted this initiative, I received an email that no, this is not the very good initiative. It will be difficult for traders, for shops. And then I thought, okay, on which side Manaballs is? On the society side or on the trader side? Because if we look at environment and climate change, if we really want to change something there, sometimes companies have to make decisions that would be more directed not to just gaining profit, but to have a long-term impact on the planet. So that's why then I was very disappointed about this rejection. I didn't even answer the email. I phoned the number and I called directly to Dizis, and then we had a vast discussion on this, and finally somehow coped with that. Yes, the first feeling for me was, okay, this is the organization making its own decision which initiative to accept, which to reject. But yes, initially, when we hear no, and in my case, when I heard this no, we spent a lot of time. We had much wider discussion on this. Okay, we didn't gather voices enough to submit this initiative for the same about. We made the traders actually to hear and to change their business operations in a way. And there are companies that have refused issuing this paper receipt. So, Tali, please say something good. Well, I said from now we actually created a very good initiative. So previously, Peteris said, well, who are these experts saying no? Sometimes with this no, it's like they just calls me and we discuss different initiatives. And this is asking opinion to a person to whom initially he had said no. So that's what I said in the very beginning. We need this filter. Yes, maybe, okay, initially I had this feeling that you go online, you register your initiative, and after 5 minutes it's appearing on the portal Manabals. We live in such such time that every person should have its right to express its opinion. But yes, there should be this filter, and argumentations should be justified. And you have to fight for your initiatives. It cannot be like this that today I am submitting my initiative, but tomorrow in the morning I have already forgotten about that. So we have to gather experience, facts, and tell to society that it's important and give opportunity to everyone to participate. I would say that your story is quite a positive one. That this no, which Talis received together with his colleagues, just urged him to support the initiative more, to grow more. Maybe you have some more stories, maybe you have some two stories. Well, first of all, the idea about this platform, Manabal's or My Voice, I am really very supportive of direct democracy. I would like to have, for example, the questionnaire of 30 questions with every elections when people could say yes or no. There are a lot of initiatives. Some of these are very carefully overthought, some not, but maybe you are not the ones to do that. People look at My Voice or Manabals as the servant. So that you say, okay, politicians are as they are, we have elected them, but okay, nothing doing. But maybe you somehow could change that the initiative should be signed by 5 people, not by one. So these 5 would discuss this initiative and make it more saturated with the content. Not just one is submitting initiative, which is actually not elaborated with facts and so. Yeah, I would like to say about these emotions. You are one of these persons creating this team that is creating this filter, so to say. I have had these feelings and thoughts sometimes that, okay, there is one initiative which is supported, one which is not. Okay, this is just a political order, or maybe this is organization which has no ideology of its own. Can you shortly tell about this process, how it happens? Because then maybe we can think on the basis of our experience how to make this process more friendly, more favorable. Of course, you have to say no at some point, but about the way, how you are filtering these offers, these initiatives. Thank you for your question. This is a possibility again to emphasize the quality criteria of platform Mana Balss. It's like a saving belt that helps ourselves. The publicly available initiatives. There is a box in our homepage where you can tick, that you can read. That's good for you. That's good for us as a team of Mana Balss. We are not a monolith, one direction thinkers. We have different political beliefs, different religious beliefs. In several issues, we have different opinions, and finally, when these initiatives are published or rejected, we have a four eyes principle. It is not written in the homepage, maybe we have to, but four eyes principle in real life means at least 6 eyes. And that really happens when we have asked 1, 2, 3, or how many experts we need. And these experts, by the way, they are not making the decision to publish initiative or not, because sometimes we are opposing them. For example, some lawyers are saying, oh, you know, this will be a pain in the ass, I'm sorry, in the court. And then we say, but we are not here to facilitate someone's life. Yes, it's a problem. We have to raise it, to bring it up, to discuss. So we do not always listen to these experts, but these experts are important in order to understand the context, because these questions in initiatives are 360 degrees, the happy life of birds, tax policies, schools, whatever, and we are not experts in all these issues. So that's why we have this deliberation, the discussion with a goal of discussing. Of course, it could be improved. Another thing about improvement. We are NGO. Mana Balss is a society participation fund NGO, and we are unique, not only with our efficiency in the world, but with our way of existing, of resonating. Yes, these are voluntarily donations that physically maintain our platform. People's donations. Okay, yes, we are convinced that we want to be independent, we want to be to maximum technocratic. But this financing mode, these public donations actually request us to be neutral. But you don't have any competition. We can't be actually employed by someone. No, you can, because you do not have any competition. I, for example, don't like that you have rejected some initiative, but you don't have competitors, so I can't go to your competitors and say that, okay, take my initiative because my Mana Balss rejected this. So if you let all those initiatives go through 102 or whatever, what will happen? You will have, you just did your work. People had the possibility to say their opinion. So we do not see what kind of political opinions you have. It's just your words. You say that you are politically neutral, but I don't believe you. It cannot be like that. You are representing intelligent Riga inhabitants. you are not representing someone from rural territories. I was in one company and there was discussion about this terror act on the 11th of September, and half of people there, I was in a pub, jumped up and said, hooray, Americans deserve that. So see how different are opinions. So I would say that either you do not filter and publish all initiatives, or you provide some transparency. There, you should provide some interaction with society. Pēteri. Well, again, you would probably would say that I am just having excuses, but we are not Hyde Park in brackets. It's not that you can come and say everything what's on your mind. Let's take one sort of bad example. In Ukraine, which is a wonderful country, wonderful society, we have our daughter company there that works there, try to give Latvian experience in Ukraine. We are doing that. We will continue to do that. Nevertheless, the policy in Ukraine is strange. It's vice versa. There is carriage before the horse, not after. So the system you criticize, okay, I agree with critics, it's good, but we see what happens in if you allow this criticism to go too far. We can see how it's happening in Ukraine. If your kitchen tap leaks, you can submit complaint to the president. You are not going to the house management because it's not so interesting, you know. And then this efficiency, it's there respectively, but it's very, very minimal. Sort of like digital participation in Ukraine is high, but the percentage, there are hundreds and thousands of petitions, but you can count on your fingers how much are supported. So there is no trust building on, but more cynicism is appearing. However, in Latvia, around this collective bargaining system, collective application system about mana balss, there is trust ecosystem created. Experts are participating, they are devoting their time, they see meaning in that, and they consult you. And when you receive this now, it's as qualitative as possibly it can be.
I'm in a bubble where my voice is Sorosite office, and it's not worth submitting any initiatives because they will never accept, and so on. So I believe it really is a matter that we should solve. Because the people who submit these initiatives, it's just a small number, because most just try to cope with the life as it is, and they never say anything. Now you submit once, you submit twice, and it's rejected and rejected. For example, in my case, when I had the euthanasia initiative, no one answered. I had to ask and ask to get an answer. And you know, the person just gets disillusioned. They are not joining any parties. They are not joining choirs. They are not establishing a building society for their building where they live, and so on. Peter's really is, I think Peter's really is quite a good critical voice. Because it seems that some points are like a very harsh criticism. You know, if we had more such platforms that could compete, you know, it would be like free market, then we had competition. But now it's a tool that maybe could work better. We could think about that. Maybe I will not give the floor to Didis for him not to provide excuses, but maybe I would like to give the floor to you to hear to your opinion, because you have different experiences. Peter's experience is that, you know, that maybe they didn't understand what happened, that gave rise to questions and fantasies like who pays them, since they accept one and reject the other. Maybe your experience is different. Maybe this is a topic that that would allow us to think. Maybe there's something we can learn, like an idea, like a proposal, what we could do. You know, if there was more trust, when you spoke about transparency, this is something that could help to organize these aspects. Viļaka office was quite interesting. I think we should start by understanding that this is a voluntary organization. This is something where people have invested their time and effort for the benefit of the society. I also have an environmental organization, a body where I spend my time, where I invest my effort. And, you know, I also receive criticism. Of course, criticism is important for people to develop, but I also agree that there is no competition, that there is no other platform where we can develop the ideas. But then if you don't like it, maybe go on and create your own platform. I think you should just accept the rules of the game. If you have just one coffee shop in a city that serves disgusting coffee, what can you do? I really and that comparison with Ukraine was really good. In English, you know, you have various platforms, you can publish things and no one filters them out. Of course, there was these emotions and so on, and people say, you know, there is someone behind that decision and lobbying that decision, but the nature or the substance of the initiative is to follow the legal path to receive these 10,000 voices or votes to have this issue reviewed by the parliament. You know, in the democracy, you can ask review any matter, but you should know where to stop, because, you know, if your tap is dripping, maybe you should not ask the parliament. No, I looked at the reports for June and July, let's say, and applications from people. There were like hundreds of requests made to Parliament. I think our initiatives were like 3 or so. Yes, people are upset, but then we have to ask about efficiency. And this is what we try to focus on, namely the efficiency. Yes, this event started with an address by the Swiss ambassador, and it was like an emphasis, and, you know, certain horizons were outlined, and I think we still have to do a lot in trying to use this instrument.
Can I say something? Hello?
Now we will switch to our Swiss guest, who is, I believe, in Sweden. Bruno, this is the right time for you to say something. Sanders already mentioned horizons. So I really want to see what is behind that horizon beyond the Alps. So maybe you can tell about the story of the happy loser.
Thank you. No, it was fascinating to listen to you, to this conversation. It remembered me to my first visit in your country in 1988. And I had a journalist friend who was very active at that time. And he said to me, I will bring you to Latvian, to Livonian, Switzerland, in the Gauja National Park. And it was very fascinating to me that you had a part of Latvia called Switzerland. But I didn't understand at that time that there was a long and strong tradition of direct democracy since 1918 in your first constitution, or in the constitution still, of course, at hand. There was exactly like in Switzerland, the idea of that the people are not just the ones to give away their vote in an election every 4th year, but also being able to put forward proposals through initiative and also to vote on legislation. And in a way, this format of modern democracy has prevailed and has been reintroduced, or in practice reintroduced after 1991. And I think this is a very big difference, what you also said about the experience in the Ukraine, where there was also discussion about doing this kind of reforms. Of course, there is no tradition of having people in charge of making these kind of decisions. Interestingly now, I mean, as I listen to you, to Manabals, I have followed your experience for the last 10 years. It's also as a reaction to that the procedure of direct democracy in the constitution provided in Latvia constitution is not as accessible as a modern democracy would need. I mean, in your legislation for an initiative, you need 10% of the signatures of the people, which is a very high number. In Switzerland, it's 1 or 2%, and also that decisions made at the ballot box on issues need to have a certain quorum, including like 50% turnout quorum. In Switzerland, there are no quorums. Those who are participating are making decisions. And I think this kind of procedural differences make it necessary that an NGO like you are complementing the system through this digital tool of agenda setting, of proposing new legislation. So when we are discussing about the idea of democracy and the reality of democracy, there is always a big gap, of course, because the idea is very nice, the reality is not so nice. And in between, you have a lot of bridges, a lot of practices and procedures you can continuously improve. So, in fact, of course, your experience shows that in many countries, people not just have to make their voice heard on issues, they also have to make their voice heard on making democracy more democratic. Going back to Switzerland, I mean, we have at least a couple of times a year, we have a vote or an initiative at the ballot box, which is about the system in itself. And I say that because there is nothing like that democracy is just there or has been given to a country. It's always a struggle. It's always a fight, because those in power never want to share power voluntarily. We have a good example in Switzerland that the men had since 1848 many rights to make their voice heard, but it took more than 100 years to also share this power with the other half of the population, the women. So the men voted on sharing their power with the women. And this is one of the big paradoxes or the big hurdles we are fighting all over the world, that we have always only a part of the people being in charge. And to democratize that, to broaden it, it requires a long process. It requires that the majority or the people in charge understands they have to share the power more profoundly with the rest of the population to make the democracy sustainable, and also in a way that most people really can become happy losers. Because if you're not eligible to vote, if you're not invited, then of course you are not a happy loser, you are a very angry non-participant. And this is what you also said in your discussion, that when you discuss and somebody says to you, I think this, and you say you are an idiot, and the other side says you are an idiot. I mean, in fact, the concept of idiot is from the Greek time, where idiot means those who are not participating. As long as you are participating, whatever you have opinion and you have the right to participate, you are never an idiot. But if you have no right to participate, then it's a risk that become an idiot. And that's a little bit this polarization we are into today, that we are still in a way of an idea of a very paternalistic system where a few make decisions and the many are just looking at and watching, and maybe sometimes they have a right to vote. So your initiative, Manabals, is really taking the responsibility in your own hands, building bridges between the idea and the reality of democracy. And this is a never-ending story, as democracy is a never-ending conversation. I'm very glad to be part of that today with you.
Bruno, liels paldies tev. Bet es
Thank you, Bruno.
turēšu kameras fokusā un lūkšu pakomentēt par tavu tiešās demokrātijas
As a direct democracy and activism in this area, you are an activist. You are active in the Swiss Democracy Foundation.
Kā tas iet kopā?
How does it go hand in hand? You know, we have direct democracy. Does it mean to return to the Athens or not really? Or we have something else now? Maybe you can explain in more detail, maybe tell about what you do and what you stand for.
Of course, I mean, the Athens experience is the birth of the idea of democracy, which means the very profound concept of that decision-making is only democratic or meaningful if there is a dialogue before decision-making, and the dialogue between all people which are living under this decision in the future. So it's a very valid idea still today. But of course, we live in another society. We don't think that an assembly democracy is the most democratic way of making decisions, because, for instance, in an assembly democracy, we know many of this experience still today in Switzerland. In an assembly, the secrecy of the vote, for instance, is not necessarily ensured, because you see how people vote. And especially if we're talking about the village or a small society, social control makes the freedom of expression not always so easy. And this is also why we have the debate today in social media, that of course we have a lot of opportunities to make our voice heard, but the freedom of expression and the freedom of opinion is not only about saying what we like to say, it's also about being part in bridging this opinion into the dialogue and the decision making. So being part in the freedom of expression needs also that we need to have procedures. And we are living in complex societies. We are living in global issues very much. I mean, climate change, migration, the economy. So what we need to build is a proper participatory and direct democratic infrastructure, which is, of course, local, regional, national, but also transnational. So, for instance, and Latvia is part of that, we have since 2012 the right to make initiatives on the European level, the European Citizen Initiative. 1 million people have the right to propose a new law for the EU, and they can gather signatures online. And this is a system which is now working more and more properly. It's a real infrastructure because it's in 23 languages, and the institutions helps you to translate your proposal into 23 languages. And it's also the right, when you gather 1 million signatures within 12 months from at least 7 different countries, member states, you get the right to go to the European Parliament, to have a hearing, and also to be in dialogue with the European Commission to develop a legislation of it. And our foundation, for instance, supports this kind of activities very much through different kind of publications. We have, for instance, published the European Democracy Passport, which you also have a Latvian edition of it, which is basically a tool for every citizen to know where and how he and she can make her voice heard and which legal tools are there. We are also involved now in developing a World Citizen Initiative, which means that when 5 million people gather signatures within 2 years, this proposal will be put forward to the UN General Assembly. So in a way, what we are doing now is the great idea of Athens and putting it in a global context. And we have to work a lot and to invest a lot into infrastructure. And of course, we still need also to make tools like the initiative tool and the referendum tool in Latvia much more democratic to make progress, because these tools have been developed over a long time. And that's the same way for Switzerland. Democracy is never finished. We always have to work for it.
Paldies, Bruno, par šo.
Thank you, Bruno. Now we have smoothly moved to the conclusion of our discussion, and I will ask all the speakers, Bruno and all the others, to provide these concluding remarks. So the question is about your opinion about the status of the policy dialogue, the current status of the policy dialogue. What are the challenges as the best examples that could be scaled up or scaled down? As Bruno indicated, you know, we have a village, we have a country, we have the European Union, like the European Citizens Initiative, and then we also have the UN. From my side, I would like to say that the challenge and what we need to change is the mandate. On the other side, the decision maker side, how will they take into account your voice? I really respect the European Citizens Initiative, but according to the Latvian standards, it is not efficient. We assess real legislative acts, real laws, that you see them being implemented in real life. These 45 amended laws, this is a real tangible result. At the European level, of course, it's good. They are reviewed. The Commission reviews these matters. Maybe has some, they have some coffee and speak about this. And then they say, you know, it was efficient and we managed to achieve something. But it is not the case. And the same applies here. It is very important to have this citizen lobby, civil lobby, to have a commitment on the other side, to have the mandate on the other side. Like in Latvia, we have the collective submission system. And I think we have to have a similar system in Brussels or in New York. But I think that is the bright future that we aspire to achieve. Bruno, maybe your concluding remarks about the current status of policy dialogue and what needs to be done.
Yes, as you said, I mean, out of a certain experience, you can always try to see how others are doing. And very often, of course, you would say, we have had successes with this, we have improved our system like that. And on the European level or in another country, this hasn't happened. So we are much more successful than you. But of course, you can also see it as an issue of that tools of democracy, of direct democracy. You cannot just move it from one place to another. I mean, you cannot use the Swiss experience and say, just do it like us, then you will have exactly the same results. It's always in a contextual, in a historic element. You talked in the beginning about emotions, about how people feel when there is a no. And of course, many of us have lived in countries, in systems where political activity and active citizenship wasn't encouraged, wasn't seen as an asset. In contrary, in many countries, in many societies, active citizenship still today is seen as a threat to the state power. I mean, what we see in Hong Kong going on with the Democrats being taken out, put into prison. I mean, your neighbor country, Belarus, it's not the moment where active citizenship by the government is seen as an asset. I mean, if people are candidates for president, they are seen as a threat and put to prison. So we have all this history of bad experience. But at the same time, we need, of course, and that's the great thing with this conversation and your work and works of many other people in favor of democracy, we have also the success stories. We have the feeling and the understanding that being part, being involved, doing something, it's even if you don't win directly, you are still making a contribution, you're still making small victories by, in fact, even losing battles. And this kind of positive of activist approach, I think, is very, very important for our democracies today, because democracy is not just something which is there to defend. Democracy is something there to develop further. And I encourage you to continue your work. And I also encourage you to cooperate with all other proactive Democrats in the world. And for this, I want to thank you very much.
Bruno, es gribēju jums uzdot vienu jautājumu.
Bruno, I wanted to ask you one question. You, as a representative of Democracy Citadel, how do you evaluate that the Spain, a member state of the EU, showed how police was beating old ladies who participated in a referendum. You mentioned Belarus, but in Spain also it happened like that police beat those old people who participated in referendum. How do you like that?
No, that wasn't, of course, nice picture. And I mean, all these kind of pictures which shows people being suppressed or beaten because of their political activity shows, of course, that there is a big deficit. I mean, Spain is a country which in many ways has gone a long way from its fascist background, from its autocratic background, but still there is a very big, let's say, a mismatch between the common level of the rule of the law on one side, which is the constitutional state of Spain, and the historic grown local, regional and federal structures of the country, where self-government is a very important part. And it's, in fact, it's really strange. I followed that very much. I've been very often in Spain to see that even if a local community wants to organize a local referendum about their own business, they need to have the approval of the federal government, even the courts. And this exactly happened, of course, as you are referring to, in Catalonia, where there has been, in fact, strong developments towards more self-government. But then when the clash was happening like that, the government organized a vote without approval of the federal community and all the other in Spain, it really provoked a big clash, where we can see that we have a development that in certain democracies today, there is a rule of the law very much put forward, but without this democratic rights of participation. And on the other side, of course, we have a populist answer where it said that people are the sovereign and democracy is the absolute value. So you can have direct democracy, but without the rule of law, which means, for instance, minority rights, which means international law. You have a lot of these clashes. I think we have other examples. Again, of course, in Switzerland, we have had a state of Jura, which over 50, 60 years gained in self-development, self-government through a series of referendums, local, regional, statewide. So in the end, it's very important that all these tools of direct democracy are embedded in a common constitutional framework, in a rule of law, because otherwise you get always these conflicts, as we also can see maybe now in Great Britain with the Scottish movement to more self-government. So I think it's important that we cannot exclude democracy from the rule of law, and not the rule of law of democracy. Together, and with active people, there can be a success.
Paldies par atbildi, jā.
Yes, thank you for your answer. So that was your reply? So short? No, it seemed to me that very often we mention Russia, Belarus at the same time in the European Union, which is considered to be democratic. There is such brutal aggression act against people who vote in this Catalonia issue. So just to beat up old lady that she wants to vote, we beat Protestants against COVID, and so we can avoid such aggressions, but there still persists wish to scare people. Well, yes, this is a different issue about institutional culture, about changes needed in the institutions. Thank you, Sandy. Your reply. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate. I will not speak about policy right now. I'm not an expert there, but what I can see is that dialogue is very valuable. It's not a theoretical statement. I see value in dialogue every day. When different opinions are being expressed, and if we can cope with this strain and still be in this dialogue, we can create good ideas. Sometimes it's not very easy. Well, you have to release this strain according to the definition. Yes, but I mean, in order to create something, to form something, when during the dialogue opinions clash, there is a big possibility that sometimes we clash and then we jump to different sides. But if the dialogue is constructive, if we have this constructive platform, then this energy which is contained in this strain, it can sublimate in some kind of solution. If that doesn't happen, then maybe these acts of aggression happen. And of course, you should condemn that. Nobody should be beaten for expressing his or her opinion. Yeah, of course, I agree with you. You can always say that there are countries where the situation is much worse. For just posting one tweet in Twitter, you can be placed into a prison. But well, we speak about policy. It's like if you do not accept something, then you act yourself. There are a lot of issues and themes in the society we would like to pay attention and to discuss on the governmental level. Maybe government knows about that, and but there are a lot of issues that nobody is moving forward if nobody is speaking about them. So about these initiatives, I raised an issue that was topical already, but a group of companies, due to some inconveniences, didn't want to implement that. And even if you address them, they very arrogantly answer, no, we don't like that. But after some couple of months, they actually implement some of my suggestions. So what I mean is we have to choose this opportunity. We have to use this opportunity that we have this democracy, freedom of speech. On the one hand, Latvians are quite lazy, maybe during centuries, being scared sufficiently. So let's not be afraid. Let's be brave. Let's move our ideas. So I return back to the very beginning and the basis of our discussion that no, is more productive beginning of a conversation than yes. Because if you say yes, yes, then that's done. But if you say no, then you have to fight for your ideas. You have to move them forward. And I really hope that we will be able to do that through platform Mana Balss. So we have to be efficient. I would say on a more positive note, next 100 years than next 10 years. So now, thank you, gentlemen, for this nice conversation. Sandis, Pēteris, and Bruno. Also, Mr. His Excellency Ambassador. Thanks to the organizers for this nice studio. Thanks to technical staff who helped us. Thanks to interpreters from Skrivenik Translation Office. Thanks for visual materials. Thank you, team of My Voice by Mana Balss. And thank you all other involved parties. In Latvian, we are calling them the same as in English, stakeholders. Together, obviously, we can. And together, obviously, we can do even better and better. So, happy anniversary to digital participation. Happy birthday to all of us. Good luck. Thank you.